Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in a company that operates on an entirely different plane than, well, the rest of big tech. This is a global powerhouse that has achieved massive scale, generating over $1 billion in revenue, serving 80 million users.
Huge numbers.
Huge numbers, yeah. And they've done it all while systematically rejecting nearly every established rule written in the Silicon Valley playbook.
Yeah.
We were talking about Zoho Corporation.
Yeah.
The bootstrapped, fiercely independent, and often, well, quiet giant from India.
It is quiet, but you're right, that quietude, it's a calculated business decision. Make no mistake.
Okay.
Zoho has intentionally avoided the whole IPO spotlight, the VC hype machine, and, the intense pressure for short-term profits that defines its American peers.
Right.
Their core identity is really rooted in something they actually call ethical capitalism.
Ethical capitalism.
Yeah, a focus on long-term user trust, comprehensive technological independence, and innovation that serves the customer first, not necessarily just the shareholder.
And that philosophy, it isn't just some marketing slogan, right? It has profound practical implications for how they operate.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to unpack exactly how this contrarian approach, spearheaded by founder Sridhar Vembu, positions Zoho as arguably the only viable, fully integrated, privacy-first alternative to giants like Google and Microsoft.
It's a big claim, but there's substance there.
And we're also going to dissect their aggressive, pretty comprehensive 10-year roadmap. We'll analyze how they plan to leverage this philosophy and their homegrown tech to hit an astonishing $1 trillion valuation by 2035.
That plan, it sounds audacious, I know, but it might just be achievable precisely because they control every single part of their operation.
Okay.
So we're diving into, let's say, 3 essential components of this success story today. First, Zoho's unique contrarian philosophy, the bootstrapping, the talent pipeline that makes them so resilient.
Right, the DNA.
Exactly. Second, we'll analyze the competitive advantage of their fully integrated 55-plus app ecosystem, Zoho One. Big one there.
Yeah.
And finally, we will break down the true game changer, I think, their proprietary private AI stack, Zia, and how that informs their path to becoming a global technological sovereign leader.
Okay, lots to cover. Let's start at the beginning then. Section 1, the contrarian DNA. So the story starts, like a lot of tech stories, with a technical challenge, but it seems it very quickly pivots to this deep cultural commitment. Tell us about that initial vision.
Well, the company was founded back in 1996, initially as AdventNet Inc. This was in Pleasanton, California.
Okay, so U.S. origins initially.
Initially, yes. The founder, Sridhar Vembu, he's highly educated, got his PhD from Princeton after studying at IIT Madras, which is, top tier in India.
Right.
But he quickly made a really strategic decision to center the majority of operations in Chennai, India.
Ah, interesting. Why Chennai so early on?
Access to talent, lower operating costs, but also, I think, a foundational belief in building capability outside the usual tech hubs. Their initial mission, it was pretty straightforward. Build intelligent, affordable technology that would genuinely help small and medium-sized businesses operate more efficiently.
And the name changed later to Zoho. That came from small office, home office, SO, really.
Exactly.
That really highlights that foundational focus. They weren't immediately chasing those massive, high-profile enterprise contracts.
No, not at all. They were focused squarely on the grassroots of the business world, empowering the smaller guys.
Which leads us, I guess, to the critical strategic choice that really defines their DNA, this whole bootstrapped crucible idea.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Vembu decided really early on that to realize his vision, this vision of long-term innovation, ethical employment, the company needed complete independence, total control.
So no VC money?
None. They relied only on friends, family initially, and then just strict revenue discipline. They consciously rejected outside venture capital funding and obviously the pressure that comes with an IPO.
Wow.
And this independence, it sounds like a constraint, but paradoxically, it became their greatest superpower.
How so?
Because it allowed them to invest in things that, frankly, VCs would instantly veto. Unglamorous but vital things.
What?
Like building rural employment centers, investing heavily in their own private data centers instead of relying on AWS or Google Cloud, and really doubling down on privacy protections way before it was trendy.
So if independence is the superpower, then the crucible, the big test that forged it, must have been the dot-com crash back in 2001.
Oh, absolutely.
Most tech companies caught in that just vanished. How did Zoho, or AdventNet back then, survive such an existential threat?
It was genuinely a near-death experience for them. Survival required, well, a tremendous amount of discipline and strategic foresight. By 2000, they were actually doing okay, generating a solid $10 million in revenue with about 115 engineers, mostly serving the telecom sector.
Okay, respectable numbers for the time.
Very. But then the bubble burst. Their telecom customer base just collapsed. It plummeted from roughly 150 organizations
Okay.
down to just 3 paying clients.
3 from 150.
3. Imagine that shock. A sudden, catastrophic loss of, what, 98% of your revenue base overnight?
That's staggering. I mean, that kind of financial shock usually means liquidation or maybe a desperate fire sale acquisition. What happened internally? What did they actually do?
Well, instead of panicking and slashing R&D, which is often the first thing to go, right?
The lifeblood.
Exactly. They made strategic, controlled cuts elsewhere and immediately began a fundamental pivot. They saw the writing on the wall. The future was moving towards cloud applications, specifically applications tailored for the small and medium business market, the SMBs, which were suddenly very underserved after the crash.
So they shifted focus completely.
Completely. This painful shift, moving from being a niche telecom software provider to developing some of the earliest cloud applications for businesses, that was the foundation. That's what built the Zoho SaaS evolution we see today. Survival wasn't about shrinking, it was about strategically rebuilding the ship, for a different ocean.
That experience in 2001, it must have just permanently cemented their commitment to financial discipline and organic growth.
You have to think so, yeah.
Because while most companies today, you hear the criticisms, right? Prioritizing shareholder return or just market penetration over long-term investment. Zoho seems to operate on a completely opposite mandate, especially regarding R&D.
They absolutely do. That discipline born from near failure allows them to play a much, much longer game than their publicly traded competitors.
So how much longer? How does that R&D investment actually look?
Well, Zoho typically reinvests an extraordinary percentage of its profits. Figures suggest up to 50% of profit directly back into research and development.
50%. Half their profit.
Half their profit, yeah. Compare that to the standard.
Yeah.
What, maybe 15% to 25% you see from most public tech firms? It's a huge difference.
What does that allow them to do, practically speaking?
That huge R&D budget lets them invest in those unglamorous but absolutely essential areas we talked about, building their own data centers from scratch, developing proprietary infrastructure top to bottom, establishing those rural employment programs, which we'll get into more detail on later, and crucially ensuring the absolute robustness of their privacy safeguards, things that cost a lot upfront but pay off massively in the long run.
So this high R&D commitment, it isn't just about building faster products or more features then. It's actually a strategic defense mechanism against market volatility.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. It means they can absorb economic shocks like another recession or a sector downturn that might force a VC-backed competitor, one dependent on continuous funding rounds or hitting short-term quarterly numbers.
Into mass layoffs or abandoning critical long-term projects.
Yeah. Exactly. The ability to fund their own growth and weather downturns is the direct consequence, the direct benefit of that bootstrapped model. It allows them to maintain what Vembu often calls a culture of craftsmanship.
Craftsmanship.
Focusing on quality, deep integration over rapid, often unsustainable scaling. That end-to-end control, starting right there with the budget, that's their structural advantage over competitors who often rely on fragmented third-party infrastructure and short-term thinking.
And that strategic independence, starting with the wallet, it translates directly into the product they offer, doesn't it?
It has to.
Let's shift our focus now to how they took that internal efficiency, that control, and translated it into a massive competitive market offering. Section 2.
Okay, let's unpack this. When we look at Zoho's product strategy, it's really built around this concept of Zoho One. And this is where they directly challenge the fragmentation that's so common in the big tech landscape. When we talk about Zoho One, we're not just talking about a software bundle, are we? It's more than that.
Oh, much more. It's really positioned as a complete operating system for business. It encompasses over 55 interconnected cloud-based applications.
55.
55 plus, yeah. And you mentioned the fragmentation challenge. Zoho aims to solve it by providing the full spectrum. Everything from customer experience tools like their CRM and desk products to finance essentials like books and invoice. Then you've got HR platforms such as People and Payroll and fundamental productivity tools like Mail and their whole workplace suite.
So a business, whether it's like a 2-person startup or even a 2,000-person corporation, could theoretically run its entire operation just within this single ecosystem. That's the goal. That's the value proposition. They can literally operate entirely within Zoho One.
Now, for the listener who runs a business or manages IT, the common pain point, the nightmare really, is trying to glue together systems from maybe 5, 6 different vendors. Salesforce for CRM, QuickBooks for accounting, maybe Dropbox for storage, a separate HR system. Data silos everywhere. Integration costs can be crippling.
It's a huge headache.
So what is Zoho's secret sauce here? How do they eliminate that friction?
The secret is actually pretty simple conceptually, but it's structurally very difficult for competitors to replicate now.
Okay.
It's this. All 55 plus applications are built internally on a shared code base.
So they built it all themselves,
Yeah.
not acquired.
Almost entirely built, yes.
Oh.
Think about the difference between a custom-built house designed with one single coherent blueprint versus, say, a collection of prefabricated sheds that you're trying to bolt together after the fact.
Right, good analogy.
When competitors, often growing rapidly through acquisition, try to mash disparate technologies and databases together, they end up spending years, sometimes billions of dollars, just wrestling with integration friction, inconsistent user interfaces, conflicting data standards. It's a mess.
So because Zoho built it all themselves, pretty much from day one, the data just flows seamlessly between applications.
Yeah.
Like if a customer service agent updates a contact in the desk app.
That update is instantly reflected across the accounting system in Zoho Books, and maybe the marketing automation platform in Zoho Marketing Hub, all without needing complex, often fragile, third-party API integrations.
Got it.
It essentially eliminates what technologists sometimes call the integration tax.
Right.
The result for the customer is a dramatically lower total cost of ownership, much higher reliability, and a singular, consistent user experience across the board. And this internal efficiency, it's immediately passed on to the customer in the form of their pricing model.
And that pricing model, I mean, that's arguably one of the most aggressive competitive tactics in the entire software industry.
It really is.
The full suite, Zoho One, it's priced incredibly transparently. We're talking as low as, what, $1 a day per employee, or typically $30 to $45 per user per month for the complete suite.
Yeah, that's the range. Let's truly put that into context against the global rivals, the big names.
Okay.
If you compare the value proposition against, say, Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, which typically offer maybe 10 to 15 core applications.
Right, the standard Office stuff plus a bit more.
Exactly. Zoho delivers 5 times more applications over 50 at roughly 1/3 the typical monthly costs per user.
5 times the apps at 1/3 of the price.
Roughly, yeah. This is precisely why Zoho has become such an incredibly appealing alternative, especially for the small and medium enterprise market, not just in India, but across the world. They're fundamentally disrupting the established cost structure of business IT.
But the value proposition, it goes beyond just the price and the sheer quantity of apps, right? The most significant competitive differentiator, the one that really seems to attract maybe the ethically conscious enterprise, is their radical position on data privacy.
This is absolutely core to their ethical capitalism model. It's not an add-on, it's foundational.
How so?
Well, think about the competitors. Google's business, fundamentally, is based on ad revenue derived from data tracking, even within Workspace to some extent. Microsoft utilizes extensive enterprise analytics across its ecosystem. Zoho, on the other hand, has built its entire infrastructure from the ground up to be privacy first. Their motto is pretty definitive. Your data, your business.
Okay.
They sell no user data, period. They run no ads within their products, and crucially, they own and operate all of their own data centers.
They own the data centers. They don't lease from AWS or Azure or Google Cloud.
Nope, they own them.
Yeah.
This gives them what they call proprietary infrastructure sovereignty, complete control over the hardware and the network where customer data resides.
So in practical terms, this means Zoho is structurally immune to a lot of the issues their rivals face. Things like mass data subpoenas in foreign jurisdictions, or being forced to monetize user activity just to satisfy shareholder demands for growth.
Precisely. They offer a transparent, sovereign cloud alternative. They can make guarantees about data locality and access that competitors who rely on third-party clouds simply cannot.
And this strategy, has it paid off in terms of loyalty?
Massively. This strategy has resulted in phenomenal stickiness. Zoho serves, as you said, over 80 million users now, more than 50,000 organizations globally. And get this, Their customer retention rate exceeds 90%.
90% in SaaS. That's incredibly high.
It's one of the highest in the global SaaS market, absolutely. That trust, built on privacy and fair pricing, translates directly into customer loyalty and significantly reduced churn compared to competitors.
Okay, so this high retention, it must feed directly into their global yet local strategy. You mentioned they operate in over 160 countries, but there's a specific focus on diversifying their physical infrastructure globally, particularly in places like the Global South.
Yes, that's a very deliberate strategy. Operating globally with physical offices and data centers in places like rural India, Japan, Nigeria, Mexico, not just the US and Europe. It does a couple of things.
Like what?
Firstly, it mitigates geopolitical risk. They aren't overly reliant on any single market's economy or, importantly, its regulatory environment.
Right, diversification.
Secondly, and perhaps more strategically long-term, this diversification positions them as a trusted indigenous technological alternative, what they sometimes refer to as the Swadeshi or locally made option, particularly in India.
Ah, playing into that made in India sentiment.
Exactly. Amid rising global distrust of U.S. tech monopolies and concerns about data sovereignty, Zoho offers governments and enterprises in emerging economies an alternative that can guarantee local data storage and control, free from foreign government oversight, like the U.S. Cloud Act, for instance.
That focus on the Global South and data sovereignty, that feels like a massive strategic play that maybe big tech is only now beginning to seriously recognize or react to.
I think that's right. They were ahead of the curve on that.
But to support this huge decentralized operation, they must need a really innovative approach to human capital, to talent. How do they possibly staff a global operation with a philosophy that seems so contrary to standard education and hiring norms in tech?
Well, that brings us nicely into the next section, looking at their talent model, which is just as unconventional as everything else they do. This really brings us to perhaps the most radical aspect of their entire operational model. Zoho Schools of Learning, often informally called Zoho University.
Zoho University, right? I've heard of this.
Founded way back in 2005, it is a living embodiment of the skills over degrees approach.
We hear a lot of talk, a lot of lip service, maybe, about moving away from strict degree requirements in hiring, but Zoho seems to have put its entire talent pipeline strategy behind this idea. How does the School of Learning actually function?
It's a highly selective program, but crucially, it's tuition-free. They're designed specifically to recruit high-potential students, often directly out of high school, and often specifically from rural and non-elite backgrounds in India and increasingly elsewhere.
So they're bypassing the traditional college system entirely.
Largely, yes. Instead of focusing on the theoretical knowledge you might get from traditional four-year programs, the curriculum emphasizes deep practical skills, coding, design, business analysis, but also rigorous ethical grounding and fostering creative problem-solving. It fundamentally bypasses the often expensive and, let's face it, sometimes exclusionary traditional college system.
Okay, that sounds great ideologically, but what's the measurable impact? Is this just a small, feel-good training initiative, or is it actually a core part of their workforce development strategy?
No, it's absolutely core. The numbers are significant. Roughly 15% of Zoho's total workforce of 15,000 employees are graduates of this in-house pipeline.
15%. 1-5.
Yes. That's over 2,000 employees who came through Zoho University, not a traditional degree path.
Wow.
This proves the viability at scale of an alternative education model in producing genuinely world-class software engineers, product managers, and business leaders, and critically, by locating many of these talent centers away from the major metropolitan hubs like Bangalore or Chennai.
Right, in more rural areas.
Exactly. They actively combat what's often called rural brain drain. They ensure that this high-potential talent stays rooted in or can return to the communities they grew up in, feeding back into the local economy, creating opportunities there.
That's a powerful social commitment.
Yeah.
And it seems to be matched by their commitment to infrastructure sovereignty and ESG goals, environmental, social, and governance.
Very much so.
You mentioned they don't just buy cloud services, they literally build the infrastructure that runs their business. Does that extend to energy too?
It absolutely does. They really do try to build everything, from their own specialized server hardware designs to their foundational AI models, which we'll get to, right down to their own renewable energy infrastructure.
Seriously. Like solar farms.
Yes. The most striking example is the 5-megawatt solar power farm they built in Tamil Nadu in southern India.
5 megawatts is significant.
It is. This farm powers a substantial portion of their Indian operations. It's a concrete, measurable alignment between their long-term profitability goals and achieving carbon-neutral sustainability. It's not just talk, it's built into their physical footprint.
This insistence on building and owning everything, from the employee talent pipeline to the data centers, even the power source, it speaks volumes about the cultural contrast between Zoho and that typical, maybe high-burn Silicon Valley ethos.
What's fascinating here is how these ethical values aren't just posters on the wall, they're structurally engineered into the business model itself.
How do you mean?
Well, Silicon Valley culture often, prioritizes rapid short-term profit, sometimes through aggressive data monetization strategies.
Yeah.
It often relies on cycles of high employee churn, maybe even disruptive mass layoffs when funding tightens or growth slows.
We've certainly seen a lot of that recently.
Exactly. Zoho, because of its private ownership and that bootstrapped independence we discussed, can genuinely afford to prioritize long-term value creation. They can implement rural-first employment policies. They foster a company culture that explicitly promotes values like simplicity, humility, and long-term commitment, both to employees and customers. It's just a different operating system for a company.
So when we analyze the market, this ethical model, it isn't just about feeling good or PR, is it? It's actually a powerful competitive advantage. It minimizes regulatory risk, maximizes customer trust. That must have tangible benefits.
Oh, it's definitely quantifiable. Market analysts who track these things note that while big tech companies often score very high on innovation metrics, Zoho consistently achieves near 100% scores for privacy and ethics and also for affordability.
100%.
Yeah, top marks in those critical trust categories. They're major competitors. They typically score somewhere in the 40% to 65% range on the same metrics.
That's a huge gap.
It's massive. And in a world where data breaches, privacy compromises, and ethical AI concerns are practically daily news,
Yeah.
that demonstrated ethical commitment becomes an incredibly powerful tool for customer acquisition and, crucially, retention. It actually lowers their long-term cost of doing business because trust is already built in. They really are positioning themselves as the true anti-big tech choice for millions of users worldwide.
Okay, so if that's the foundation, the ethics, the talent, the independence, let's pivot now to what seems like the single biggest growth catalyst for their ambitious $1 trillion future. The homegrown AI revolution they are currently orchestrating. This sounds really interesting.
Right.
So while companies like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft are dominating the AI headlines with things like ChatGPT and Copilot, Zoho has been, well, quietly deploying a full-fledged end-to-end AI stack. They refer to it as private AI. What does that actually mean conceptually, and why does it matter so much to their competitive position?
It's fundamentally a complete rejection of the prevailing AI model that we're seeing emerge. For Zoho, AI is not primarily a service to be rented from a third party like Microsoft Azure OpenAI service or Google's Vertex AI.
Right.
It is an asset to be meticulously built, trained, and owned locally within their own infrastructure. This goes right back to that core tenet we keep mentioning. Own everything, depend on no one.
And the consequence of that ownership.
It's profound for privacy and security. It guarantees that zero customer data used for training or inference leaves Zoho's private cloud environment. Ever.
Zero data lease.
Zero. This means absolutely no hidden training on your company's sensitive data, no risk of your data being used to improve models for competitors, no ads targeted based on your usage, no surveillance risk, and zero possibility of data resale. It's a locked box.
Okay, that's a powerful guarantee. And this private approach, it centers around their AI platform called Zia.
That's right, Zia.
Zia began, I remember, as a relatively simple AI assistant back in, 2017? Something like that.
Yeah, it started fairly basic, providing insights, answering simple queries within apps.
But its evolution by 2025, you're saying, places it in a completely different category now.
Sure.
How has Zia transformed?
Zia is now a much more sophisticated multi-agent intelligence framework. It utilizes complex natural language processing, deep learning, predictive analytics, the whole suite of modern AI techniques.
Multi-agent, what does that mean in practice?
It means they deploy specific Zia agents. You can think of these as independent, autonomous AI workers designed for specialized tasks across the entire Zoho platform.
Like what kind of tasks?
Well, think of a Zia agent specifically for candidate screening within Zoho Recruit, their HR software, or another Zia agent purely dedicated to advanced sales forecasting inside Zoho CRM, or even a Zia agent that handles initial customer support triage and routing within Zoho Desk. Each agent is an expert in its narrow domain.
Okay, so specialized AI workers. And these agents, they don't just operate in silos, do they? You mentioned they interact. That seems key for automating workflows.
That's absolutely right. That's the next level. They utilize something Zoho developed called the agent-to-agent A2A protocol.
A2A protocol.
It allows these different specialized agents to collaborate seamlessly, to communicate and pass information between each other, to execute complex, multi-step workflows.
You can example.
Sure. Imagine a sales forecasting agent identifies a potential large deal closing soon. It could automatically trigger a request via the A2A protocol to an inventory management agent to check stock levels, and maybe simultaneously alert an agent in Zoho Books, the accounting software, to prepare for the invoicing process. All of this happening autonomously, without direct human intervention, but creating a traceable, auditable trail within the system.
That sounds like true workflow automation, not just tasking.
Exactly. It's moving towards an autonomous workforce model.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. They haven't just adapted external models, like wrapping an interface around GPT-4. Zoho has actually committed the significant resources to build their own proprietary large language models, LLMs, trained entirely in India. That's a massive undertaking, the compute power alone.
It is a huge commitment, and it's a very deliberate strategic move towards complete technological independence in the AI sphere. Zoho has developed 3 distinct proprietary LLMs so far. They span 1.3 billion, 2.6 billion, and a pretty robust 7 billion parameters. And crucially, these were all trained using their own NVIDIA GPU infrastructure housed within their own data centers.
And these models aren't just generic chatbots, are they?
No, that's key. They aren't trying to build a general answer-anything model like ChatGPT. These LLMs are meticulously optimized for specific business contexts. They understand CRM terminology, accounting principles, HR regulations, support workflows. This makes them immediately more effective and, importantly, more accurate within the Zoho application ecosystem compared to a general-purpose model, less prone to hallucination on business tasks.
And how does the performance stack up? Do we have any data suggesting they're competitive against the big, well-known models from Meta or Google?
We do have some early indications. The 7 billion parameter model, their largest public one so far, is reported to rival the performance of Meta's Llama 3 8 billion parameter model in specific enterprise benchmark tests.
Okay, so competitive performance.
Yes. And furthermore, they're not stopping there. They are actively investing in more advanced concepts like the reasoning language model, or RLM.
RLM. What's the goal there?
An RLM is specifically designed to handle multi-step logical deduction, complex business process sequencing, and planning areas where many existing LLMs still struggle with consistency, hallucination, and managing complex instructions accurately. It's about moving beyond text generation to actual problem solving.
The democratization factor here, though, seems huge. It's not just the technology itself, it's the financial model they're using. They seem to be directly challenging the fundamental API subscription model, the per-token pricing that OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and others rely on.
This is perhaps the single most disruptive element of their entire AI strategy, I think.
How so?
Zoho bundles almost all of its advanced AI features, including access to these powerful LLMs and Zia agents, with the existing Zoho One subscription.
Yeah.
That affordable $30 to $45 a month per user plan we talked about.
Okay, so what's the catch? Is there a usage limit?
Here's the kicker. There is no per-token billing.
None at all.
None. This completely removes the prohibitive variable cost barrier that currently prevents many small and mid-sized enterprises from adopting sophisticated, high-volume AI usage. With competitors, if you run a massive analysis or generate lots of text, your costs can skyrocket unpredictably based on token consumption.
Right. Pay-as-you-go can get expensive fast with AI.
Extremely. So if a small business using Zoho has, say, 1,000 customer support transcripts analyzed by a Zia agent in a month, the cost is exactly the same as if they analyzed 100,000 transcripts the next month.
That fundamentally breaks the economics of the current AI ecosystem, doesn't it? It makes scaling AI usage potentially exponentially cheaper for their customers.
It is a direct frontal challenge to the pay-as-you-go, metered rental model of AI that dominates the market. And they're pushing that democratization even further by empowering customers to build their own AI workforce.
How are they doing that?
They recently launched Zia Agent Studio. This is essentially a no-code, low-code builder environment. It empowers any business user, even someone without specialized coding skills, to create and deploy their own custom autonomous agents using simple natural language prompts and drag-and-drop interfaces. It's about decentralizing AI creation, putting the power in the hands of the domain experts within a business.
Fascinating. Finally, on AI, We must link this strategy back to their global south focus, particularly the linguistic needs of massive emerging economies like India itself.
Yes, that connectivity is absolutely essential to their vision. Zoho recognized early on that many existing AI models are heavily biased toward English and maybe a handful of major European languages, leaving billions underserved.
The data divide.
Exactly. They are directly addressing this linguistic divide. They introduced Zia hubs for Zoho WorkDrive, their file management system. These are essentially unified content intelligence engines.
What do they do?
They securely process all the unstructured enterprise data. You might have emails, documents, meeting notes, transcripts, PDFs, turning it into a kind of living, searchable brain for the company, all securely within the company's private Zoho cloud, making internal knowledge instantly accessible via AI.
And the language aspect.
More importantly, perhaps, for emerging markets, they've invested heavily in developing their own automatic speech recognition, ASR models. They started with English and Hindi, reporting 75% improved accuracy over baseline open source models for Indian accents and contexts.
75% better accuracy. That's significant.
Very significant for usability. And they have concrete plans already in motion to expand this high accuracy ASR coverage to 15 major Indian languages. This is absolutely crucial for enabling widespread AI adoption across vast, diverse, non-English speaking markets in India and eventually beyond. It's about true accessibility.
So the infrastructure is in place. The core AI technology is proprietary and private. The pricing is incredibly aggressive, and they're focused on accessibility. Now let's look at how they plan to package all of this capability into their final audacious growth projection. The roadmap to $1 trillion. Okay, this roadmap, when you lay it out, it's nothing short of breathtaking. Zoho is aiming for a projected $105 billion in annual revenue.
Billion, with a B.
Billion, yes. And 1.5 billion users globally, leading to that $1 trillion plus valuation target by 2035. Now, this isn't based on some overnight speculative success. It appears to be a very systematic three-phase approach built squarely on that foundation of independence and ethical software we've been discussing.
That's right, it's methodical.
Let's start with Phase I, which they see as focus on building the foundation and achieving initial scale. This runs roughly from 2025 to 2028, and the target here is $10 billion in annual revenue. What are the key moves in this phase?
Phase I is entirely about securing that technological sovereignty on a truly global scale. The immediate #1 goal is a massive infrastructure expansion. They plan on tripling their proprietary data centers, going from the current 15 locations up to 45 locations worldwide.
45 data centers. Wow. Why so many?
It's about ensuring low latency, high performance, and crucially robust data security and sovereignty across every major continent and region they operate in. But it's how they're building them that's interesting.
Okay.
A key part of this is building what they call rural compute parks, particularly in India and potentially expanding into Africa, powered largely by their own solar energy farms.
Rural compute parks. Why the focus on building these in rural areas? Why not just lease more space in existing urban tech hubs?
Well, it's really a dual strategic play. First, it ties directly back to their social mission of rural development and decentralization. It creates high-tech jobs and economic opportunities in areas that desperately need them, outside the overcrowded megacities.
Okay, the social angle.
Second, from a business perspective, it likely reduces long-term operating costs, land, power, and crucially, it reduces their dependency on volatile global energy markets if they're generating their own solar power. It also solidifies their ESG commitment. And from a customer standpoint, these regional parks ensure that data sovereignty can be genuinely maintained locally, which is becoming a non-negotiable requirement for many governments and enterprises in emerging markets who are increasingly wary of, say, the U.S. Cloud Act or Chinese government data access controls.
Makes sense. And to staff all this expansion.
That's where the talent pipeline comes back in. They plan on simultaneously expanding the Zoho University Global Program to over 100 campuses worldwide during this phase.
100 Zoho University campuses.
That's the projection, to guarantee they have the necessary pipeline of skilled, locally sourced talent ready to run these new data centers and support regional growth. It's all integrated.
Okay, that's Phase I foundation laid. Now, moving into Phase II, which runs roughly 2028 through 2031, the target revenue jumps dramatically here, up to $50 billion annually. This seems to be where they shift from being just a provider of a bundled suite to becoming a true work OS, the entire operating system for a business.
Exactly. This is what they're calling the platformization era. The cornerstone product here will be the launch of Zoho One 3.0.
What's different about 3.0?
It's about even deeper integration of the core components: finance, HR, CRM, collaboration, and of course embedding AI ubiquitously throughout. But the really big, ambitious launch plan for this phase is Zoho Chain.
Zoho Chain. Is that a cryptocurrency?
No, not a public cryptocurrency. Zoho Chain is envisioned as a private, possibly federated blockchain designed specifically for business use cases.
Like what?
Secure, verifiable business transactions, immutable record keeping for compliance, supply chain tracking, and crucially, enabling verifiable ESG compliance reporting for enterprises. They seem to be aiming to become the default, trusted digital ledger for businesses globally, built right into their operating system.
That's ambitious.
Yeah.
And the high margin strategy here involves going vertical, right? Targeting specific industries rather than just being a horizontal platform for everyone.
Yes, vertical SaaS dominance is seen as essential for hitting that $50 billion revenue goal. They plan to launch dedicated, industry-specific cloud platforms. Think Zoho Health Cloud, tailored for medical practices with HIPAA compliance built in, or the Zoho Agritech suite for modern farming operations, or Zoho Commerce Cloud for deeply integrated e-commerce businesses.
So taking their deep integration capabilities and tailoring them for highly regulated or complex vertical markets.
Precisely. By doing that, they can capture much higher margins than generic horizontal software and establish defensible market leadership positions in specific, lucrative industry niches.
And beyond just software, they also plan to challenge the financial infrastructure sector directly during this phase. That feels like a serious escalation.
It is. They appear to be building out a complete global financial ecosystem, primarily aimed at their SME customer base initially.
Wow.
This includes launching Zoho Pay, envisioned as a global payment gateway seamlessly integrated across all their commerce, invoicing, and subscription management applications. And even more ambitiously, Zoho BaaS, Bank as a Service.
Bank as a service. Are they becoming a bank?
Not directly. The BaaS model usually involves partnering strategically with existing licensed local banks in different countries. Zoho would provide the technology layer, the user interface, the integration into the business suite, while the partner bank handles the regulated financial backend.
Oh, okay.
They seek to move beyond merely providing accounting software like Zoho Books to becoming a critical, embedded financial infrastructure provider for businesses worldwide. This further consolidates control and value capture within the Zoho ecosystem. It makes it even harder for customers to leave.
Okay, very sticky. Finally, we reach phase 3, the period from 2031 through 2035. This is where they aim for that $105 billion in annual revenue and hope to achieve the highly anticipated $1 trillion valuation. This phase seems dedicated to establishing Zoho as the undisputed global tech sovereignty leader.
That's the pinnacle they're aiming for, yes. This is where the long-term geopolitical strategy, the investment in data sovereignty and local presence, really aims to pay off big time.
Oh.
They plan to enter the GovTech sector, government technology, very aggressively. The plan includes deploying Zoho GoOS.
Yep.
Yes, a dedicated sovereign cloud and AI stack built explicitly for national and regional governments. Their target here is incredibly ambitious, partnering with over 50 nations worldwide for their core e-governance solutions.
50 nations. Why would a national government choose Zoho GovOS over, say, solutions built on AWS GovCloud or Microsoft Azure Government?
It comes back to that foundational philosophy and structure. National governments, more than anyone, require ironclad guarantees on data security, data residency, and absolute non-interference from foreign powers.
Right, national security concerns.
Exactly. Zoho's demonstrated commitment to owning its proprietary data centers, its zero adds zero tracking policy, its independence from U.S. venture capital and stock market pressures, and its championing of indigenous technology. All of this provides the technological sovereignty that many nations, especially those in the global south or those wary of becoming overly reliant on U.S. or Chinese geopolitical interests, increasingly demand for their critical national data infrastructure. It is the ultimate trust play, built over decades.
Okay, that makes sense. And their ambitions, incredibly, seem to stretch even beyond the B2B and GovTech markets, potentially into the consumer space. That seems like an incredibly bold move, considering the entrenched dominance of Apple and Google in consumer hardware and software.
It is bold, definitely a stretch goal perhaps, but it's on their long-term roadmap. They project potentially entering the consumer space with products like Zoho Home OS, perhaps a smart home platform, and the Zoho Life Suite.
Life Suite.
Apps for personal productivity, personal finance management, maybe even health tracking, all guaranteed to be privacy secure, adhering to the same principles as their business software. No data selling, end-to-end encryption by default.
And the hardware. There was mention of a phone.
The most aggressive projection mentioned is the potential launch of a privacy-secure Zoho phone and maybe a Zoho pad by 2033 or so.
A Zoho phone. Wow.
The thinking seems to be trying to replicate their success in B2B, provide a truly privacy-first hardware and software alternative for consumers who are becoming increasingly disillusioned with the massive data collection and tracking inherent in the current Android and iOS ecosystems. It's a long shot, but it fits the narrative.
Definitely fits the narrative. And how essential is the role of AI in this final phase? What kind of revenue targets are they placing on this autonomous future they envision?
In phase 3, AI shifts from being primarily a tool assisting humans to becoming an increasingly autonomous workforce itself, particularly for SMEs. They plan to deeply integrate Zoho robotics, likely starting with software bots and process automation, and launch Zoho Autopilot, envisioned as suites of AI agents capable of handling core, complex business tasks, think bookkeeping, regulatory compliance filings, advanced customer service interactions almost entirely autonomously for small and medium-sized businesses, taking the load off human workers for routine but complex functions.
In the financial impact.
They project that AI and robotics alone could generate a staggering $10 billion in annual revenue by 2035, essentially automating large parts of the professional services sector for their massive global user base.
Okay, so summarizing this incredibly ambitious multi-phase roadmap, the projected $1 trillion valuation isn't just built on speculative hype or unsustainable VC-fueled growth like we see elsewhere. It seems to be built on three critical strategic growth levers they've been cultivating for decades.
Exactly. Those levers are clear. First, full-stack independence. Owning everything from the silicon maybe eventually to the data center, the software stack, the AI models. This ensures maximum control, resilience, and potentially higher long-term profit margins.
Okay, independence is number one.
Second, the Global South First strategy. Actively targeting the billions of users in emerging markets who are currently underserved or often overlooked by Silicon Valley big tech, and doing it with a focus on local needs and data sovereignty.
Right, tapping into huge growth markets.
And third, relentlessly cementing their brand as the ethical tech giant. Using their track record on privacy, affordability, sustainability, and fair employment practices as a key competitive differentiator to maximize trust, minimize long-term regulatory exposure, and attract ethically conscious customers and governments worldwide.
That unique combination, ethical rigor combined with aggressive, integrated platformization, that's what they believe fundamentally justifies their high projected valuation multiple in the global marketplace down the line.
That's the bet they're making. It's a long game. Hashtag outro.
So Zoho's journey, as we've unpacked it today, it really illustrates a remarkable and, frankly, often counterintuitive truth in today's tech world. That global technological leadership can apparently be achieved without the usual compromises demanded by Wall Street, without relying on external venture capital funding rounds, and crucially, without sacrificing core ethical values like user privacy, environmental sustainability, and human-centered employment practices.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, Zoho's model, it's really becoming an exemplar of this growing technological sovereignty movement we're seeing globally.
Technological sovereignty.
It's a powerful narrative shift. It demonstrates that indigenous technology companies built on sustainable, independent, long-term principles can directly compete and potentially thrive against the established global monopolies.
So it challenges that dominant narrative.
Absolutely. Their rise fundamentally challenges the prevailing, highly financialized narrative that insists tech success must conform to the short-term, high-risk, exit-driven Silicon Valley template. Zoho seems to be proving, day by day, that integrity and profitability are not mutually exclusive goals. In fact, for them, they appear to be structurally reinforcing each other.
They are truly redefining what a successful global tech empire can look like in the 21st century. One that's maybe humble in its origins, certainly global in its reach, but seems determined to remain fundamentally human and ethical at its core.
It's a fascinating case study.
So the final provocative thought we want to leave you, the listener, with today really derives from the long-term vision of Sridhar Vembu himself. It's his potential headline quote for the year 2035. The next trillion-dollar company won't be from Silicon Valley. It will be from a solar-powered village in Tamil Nadu.
Powerful statement.
It is. So we encourage you to maybe explore this concept of AI for dignity, as Zoho sometimes frames it. And consider how embracing principles like full-stack independence, genuine affordability, privacy-first design, and investing in indigenous development might fundamentally reshape your own business's approach to technology adoption and perhaps your definition of ethical growth in the digital age.
Lots to think about there.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.